We are back on the Humble Rising podcast, back from a brief break. I always share and teach and preach a bit about taking breaks when you need them, even if you feel like you have to do something, and knowing when it's time to take a step back or to slow down a bit. And so that's what happened. And so the podcast is back after a brief break, and I have a very timely conversation for you. So Diana Maldonado is back on the podcast. Diana was a guest on the podcast on episode 132. So if you go back and listen to that episode, you'll learn more about her background, her personal story, and her experience as a best-selling author, business strategist, and founder of the Candidate School, and her journey to becoming the first Latina elected to represent Williamson County in the Texas state legislature. And if you listen to that episode, you will also get to know and understand why she's so focused on helping women get elected to public office and how she is doing it through her course, her program, the Candidate School. Because in the Candidate School, she shares everything she wished that she knew during her own campaign journey. And so she teaches in the Candidate School about how to really master your candidate identity. How do you manage the finance piece? Policy, power, how do you manage all of that strategically and ethically? And so the program really helps you, if you're thinking about running for office, helps you consider it and think about all the factors that will come into play, but also helps you navigate the political arena with some more confidence, because now you have some more information from someone who's done it and been there and who has a lot of experience. So I wanted to bring Diana back to delve into the exact process of running for office. Now, we went through her process and her story, but we weren't really able to delve too deep into the process running for office in that conversation. So kind of the nuts and bolts of running for office. And that's what we're doing in this conversation. We dive into the essential steps from understanding your why, which is really important, understanding why you want to run for office, because it's actually very difficult to do. It's very difficult. It's very challenging. It can be very stressful. So understanding your why and your purpose and your reason for running for office, why that's so important. And we also talk about navigating logistics and the financial aspects of campaigning, which is a massive part of campaigning. So whether you're considering a bid for a local school committee seat or state legislature or aiming for Congress, I know a lot of you out there are considering running for office in 2026 or beyond. And so that's why this conversation is very timely, because if you're running for office in 2026, you have to submit now. You have to announce now or soon. And so that's why I wanted to share this episode right back when we got back from the podcast break, because of its timeliness, and because if you would like to do that, you have to understand what it actually requires. So when you get into the process, you're not like, oh, I didn't know that. I hope that this conversation helps you understand, do I really want to run for office? And if I do, okay, this is kind of what it takes. Let me learn more and dig into this more. And then let me, if I want to run in 2026, let me get the wheels moving. Let me get going, because that's what's going to be required, right? It's going to start to move very, very quickly. So this conversation is for you. It is packed with practical advice. And obviously, you get some motivation and inspiration, of course. With that, here is my conversation with Diana. Welcome back to the Humble Rising podcast, Diana. I'm so happy you're back, because we talked about more of your personal story last time. And this time, we're going to walk people through how to actually run for office and what really you need to take into consideration. Because right now, we know, and we've talked about this before, there are a lot of people thinking about running, and a lot of them are scared, and a lot of them just don't know what to expect. So I'm so glad you're here with us today to walk us through it all.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. I enjoyed our first conversation. There is a lot to unpack, and especially in these recent times in the political landscape, of how it's filtering down to our everyday lives in a way that it hasn't in recent times. So the movement, the energy, and also the fear is there, but through candidate school and taking those few steps that people can discern, I think will put them on a good path.
I love that. So before we start kind of walking people through, do you want to quickly remind people what the candidate school is and what it offers?
Yes. So the candidate school I created as a way of when I was in office, and I went through it alone. I didn't have mentors per se, or with regards to Latinas or women that I could, fall back on or lean in with to help me through this journey. But nonetheless, I just used my professional career to be able to put, together a path for me because there was a lot of people depending on me to win,
Mhm.
and rightfully so, and a lot of people had invested, financially in me, so I did that, but years later, again, as I've seen the movement's grown, and I recently was an interim executive director for a young Latino civic engagement organization, all of that culmination really had put me to put pen to paper to curate 20 daily lesson plans for women considering to run for office. And it's the ultimate resource guide for women to run for office and own their future. So I'm really, really excited to share this one of a kind uh, course that's curated uniquely to each individual. Because as you go through these lessons, they will come away with something very unique to them that if you and I were to take the same, go through the same lessons, it'll be different for us. But at the same time, it defines us how you can set that path and course to go into the campaign mode, which I didn't have for myself. So I
Mhm.
want more women in office.
Yes.
And that was the impetus for me to pay it forward.
Yes, I do too. I do too. More women, more Latinas, more like women of color. Like, yep,
Yes.
one and all. Okay, so Diana, so I mean, who knows if this is really true, but
Mhm.
say I'm considering making a run for office. Now, maybe we should specify federal, state, local.
Yes.
You talk a little bit about that first, but if I'm thinking
Yeah.
about it, where do I start?
Right, right. So it really starts, if you think about it, it always starts with an issue that's been ruminating in your mind for a while, or you see a disparity, or there was an experience, whether you had as a child, in your teens, in your professional career, or you see it in your community. And so to me, I would say that that's the foundation, and it's where do you put that issue? Where does it fit best? Does it fit best in municipal, city council? Does it fit best in education, such as a school board? Or does it fit best at a statewide office or congressional? Now, to give you the numbers, and again, doing the wonky math and all the analytics and logistics for candidate school is looking at what is your why and what is that experience and where to overlay it on. Because across the nation, there's over 500,000 elected seats, across the nation that happen on a periodic cycle on the election cycles. But 96% of those are at the local level. So I would entertain and encourage somebody to start at the local level and gain the traction, get to know your community. And I'm sure to some extent, women already know their community because they've already been community volunteers, organizers, even in the professional circles and networks. They've already had that experience. So it's bottling up that experience and then transferring over to where it best fits. So looking at the analytics, where it would best lie for you to have gain ground and traction and potentially win the first time around, or if not, gain that experience and then come back and run again. And so that's where I would look at it. And when part of the lesson plans is to have the candidate go through that process first. Let's get the logistics, the analytics, and then even the financial part. Running for a school board seat obviously is a lot less. Well, probably now it's changed, but is a lot less than a congressional seat. And then depending on the state that you're running for a statewide seat, it depends. So knowing that it takes $5,000 for a school board seat versus maybe $5 million for a congressional seat.
Yeah.
So you have to think about the finances as well.
Yes. No, and it sounds like there is this, you have to have this desire for championing or pursuing a certain cause or issue and letting that be more of the anchor versus, oh, I'm thinking about running, but there really is an issue that you're trying to resolve and something that
Yeah.
you stand firmly behind
Yeah.
to push through. And what is the best avenue for me to do that?
Yes. Yes.
In addition
Yeah.
to, how much money do I think I can raise? Although we can talk about that too. Is
Yeah. And
because
that's a
I'm
totally
sure
different.
people, yeah, because I'm sure people think they may not be able to, or maybe they think they can raise a ton of money, but I'm gonna bet that most people say, "Oh my god, how am I gonna actually raise all this money?"
Mhm.
And all the phone calls they have to make and all the people
Mhm.
I on and I've been talking to a few politicians and they say, "As I'm doing the work, I'm always raising money."
Raising money. Exactly. Yeah. And let's go back to where you said a lot of people say I'm thinking of running for office, but there's a big difference between thinking of running for office and actually getting into action and doing it.
Yeah.
There's that liminal space that I encourage women to discern and really move it up a notch, just 1%, because that'll get you closer to taking that action. And the one best advice that I could say is don't do it alone.
Mhm.
There's just so many people that want to help and so many people that will jump on board on your cause and that they want to see that cause grow and get resolved or be amplified. So just know that whether it's raising money or how do I get to knocking on doors, how do I get to calling people, just don't do it alone. There's just so many people out there that once you step out and make that commitment, it'll
Mhm.
start growing.
Yeah. Oh, but Dana, you're getting into all of these limiting beliefs we have. Like, no one's going to show up for me. I
Yeah,
don't ask for help. What if no one gives me money? What if
yeah,
like all these things, all these insecurities that may be a little bit hidden or quiet, but we know are
yeah,
there, can be
sure.
spotlighted and amplified and like ignited when you are entering this kind of process. What are your thoughts on that?
And that's going to always be there, Ari V, because to me, those still pop up in my, you know, frequent, not everyday life, but frequently pop up when I'm making a big decision or I'm making a big move. The thing with time and growth, wisdom and experience is that I'm able to identify it for what it is.
Mm,
And was it Elizabeth Gilbert, the author, that she was also going through the imposter syndrome as she was writing her book? And what she said is like, fear and doubt, anxiety will always be along for the ride. You just don't have to make them, you know, be the driver.
yes.
And so to me, that's also it just really just cemented for me to like, okay, it's okay to have them. But I
Yes.
think it's a healthy dose to then also continue to inspire you to take action versus to numbing you because uh, in politics, first on, they said you have to get past your first no. You are looking for that no. You are
Yeah.
looking for somebody to tell you, no, I'm not going to vote for you. No, I'm not going to give you money because once you hear it, it's going to drive a fire in you to look for other yeses. And
Mhm.
truth be told, it does happen.
It does
And
happen.
so in a way, you're like, I don't care if you say no. I'm going to find 5 more yeses. And so that's how you build momentum and you build the confidence and the courage. But then also because as Latinas, we don't come from generational wealth. Our parents, I know at least mine, didn't come from wealth. They, you had, 2, 3 jobs, struggling, money was always a stressor for them. So we, or at least I, looked at money that it was a negative or something bad. So it's also the unconditioning of those brain pathways that I saw growing up, that I can say money can be a positive, force to make good change versus money is always bad, or don't talk about money. And then also for women, uh, I know I'm preaching to the choir with you, where Latinas are make the least amount of income for our white male counterparts, but then also our female counterparts.
Mhm.
So we do have more real obstacles and barriers that we have to acknowledge that are there, and also find ways to say, okay, in order for me to raise $5,000, um, how and who do I bring into the table to help me do it? Because I know I can win and I want to win.
Yes, taking control of your own, or even unpacking your own money story,
Yes,
be
yes.
important mindset work for if you decide to run. So
Mhm,
say we have someone who is gonna run for, say they're like, "No, I'm gonna go for a congressional seat," which is, it's aggressive, it's ambitious, but let's go with it. Um, Say that's the case. They where do they actually begin in terms of, like, asking for help? Like, who are they asking for help from? Like,
Well,
how do
you're gonna
they know
go,
who to go
yeah.
to?
Yeah, no, you're gonna go through your local parties and your state parties to see, who are, who are the decision makers, and to some extent, how they say, kiss the ring per se. But
Mhm,
I think it's also the respect issue of saying, hey, I am looking for running for this congressional seat. I know that, and you have to do your research, because you just don't say I want to run for it. You can say, because in the past cycles, we haven't been able to pass, healthcare issues or women's reproductive rights. And my research shows that there's a big percentage of the population or the constituency base that wants it. So I
mhm,
am primed to be able to champion that issue. And my counterpart or my opponent is losing traction. So you have to also build your story. That's why you come with your why. You do the logistics, you do the research, you meet with the local folks, and then you also look for key influential political strategists, to kinda get a buzz going.
mhm,
And then for the congressional seat, that's where you would also have very, specific meetings when it comes to the fundraising part,
mm,
because that's where you have a lot more money that, you get with in this case, the National Democratic Party, state, Democratic parties, and, because they're also, you know, giving money to viable candidates.
mhm.
And in my case, I had Annie's List, which is a statewide group from
Yes,
Emily's List.
yes.
So, and even when I ran my school board seat, I also had hacks, because
Mhm,
I said, I'm not going to do this alone. I do not have the wherewithal to raise this money. But I know that I have allies and like
mhm,
minded philosophical people who
mm,
we share same views, and that's how it happened. But you have to start early. You have to commit early, start early, so that you can dissuade others from filing.
mm.
And one of the big things, in fact, I was just talking to a candidate here who's literally 2 days ago. I had a conversation
Ah,
with a phenomenal young woman who is looking to run for a Texas congressional seat.
mhm,
And that's basically the information that I gave her of how you start, you know, having those conversations
mhm.
with key people that will share. It's kind of like they say, who is talking about you when you're not in the room type of
Yes,
conversation.
yes, yes.
And then also in that, finding out where those pockets of money are. But then what I also told her, but stay true to yourself, stay true and authentic to what you know works for you.
Mhm,
What's the local playbook? Don't get the cookie cutter playbook from the national, you know, platform that doesn't relate to what you're doing.
Mm.
Because I think that that's one of the mistakes that candidates have done on congressional seats, that they used, the sound bites from the national platform that don't readily resonate
Mm.
geographically to some of their congressional seats.
So, if you're talking to the right people, I think remember your story, Diana, was like you were then tapped, like you were tapped. Like
Yeah.
someone's like, I think it's you, you're the one who we want. And I'm wondering how is that really what happens for most candidates is that they start getting into the mix, they start meeting key decision makers, and then they're like, who decides? Like, who tells them it's you? We're gonna back you. Like, we're gonna support
Uh-huh.
you. Like, how does that happen? Because we know your
Uh,
story, but
yeah.
how does it happen for someone who I really want to do this? They do the analytics, they do the logistics, they do their research, they come with their story and what they really want to work on, and then they're just kind of they want the approval and the backing.
Mhm. So I think it comes from you. What I've seen from the time that I ran for office, yes, you would get tapped a lot, but times have changed to where if you want to run for office, then you make that commitment.
Mm.
And so I see more and more individuals taking that plunge. And I'm so excited about that change versus waiting to be tapped to
Mm.
run for office. Because what I see now, there's so many wonderful young leaders that have resources, that have the political acumen, that have done, you know, um, mobilization, that know the key issues that are for them
Mhm.
and for the future leadership and the community at large. Versus some of our current leaders that are out of touch. So I am really excited that these young professionals are
Mm.
taking the bull by the horns and they are venturing and they are doing a grassroots campaign that will bring followers to them.
Mhm.
So that is quite refreshing and quite different. And I think at some point, these political strategists and these the people who hold the purse strings will
Mhm.
say, "Oh yeah, they're doing it right. We need to go ahead and get on board with them." So there is a different dynamic happening, but then I also think that the dynamic that it has to change because of the current discourse that we have in the White House administration of how they're dismantling democracy,
Mhm.
that people are taking different ways to do that. So if I were, like a grassroots organizer, I worked for a nonprofit, like I say, Latino civic engagement. I know I already have a political acumen and I have relationships. So I would start with that base.
Mhm.
And then I would say, because who are the funders? Who are people who will open up their pocketbooks? Who are
Mm.
people who have the political leadership that I can have meetings with? And that's what I would do right away, have those two types of meetings and be very committed to your why,
Mhm.
to you as far as your message is what's going to define you, but then also why people should invest in you, time and money. So you have to have that just really solid. You can stumble on it, but just be really solid, authentic and passionate about that process because from the Democratic side and even looking at from the lens of a Latina is like there needs to be representation when it comes to Latinos. There needs to be representation when it comes to women. And we care about our jobs and the economy and having safe neighborhoods. So we're just as invested in American democracy because we have been here from hundreds of years and generations. We just haven't been in the corridors and the halls of democracy to make that change because as a culture, we've been, we deflect to others to do that.
Mhm.
But I'm just really excited with the energy of young professionals, but at the same time, unfortunately, the negative and fearful tactics call people to rise up and do something differently.
Yes, yes. And what if I'm not involved? Maybe I've sat on a few boards for a nonprofit or something, but I
Mhm.
haven't that hasn't been my career. What
Yeah.
if my
Mhm.
career is more business focused and or corporate focused, or I'm a lawyer? I've many lawyers are in Congress. I see that
Yes.
even local politics, it's similar.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if that's something that someone's thinking about, like running for office and they're in that kind of sphere,
Mhm.
what assets
So
they have.
I think if you sat on boards, that is a great resume to run for office because that shows that you're collaborative. That shows that you work with people of different, walks of life because you are representing an organization or a nonprofit or a corporate or corporation that has, a mission. And through that deliberation, through that collaboration, and even through the disagreement, you have to be united in solving the issue and making that organization grow. So I think having that experience is is just primes somebody to run
Mm,
for office. And then you get to know the budget and the finances of an organization. So while you may not be critical or deep into that area, at least you have a general knowledge of how
mhm.
that works. And that is how a campaign works as well. And but then you hire the people to run that for you and you stay informed because at the end of the day, the buck stops with you. You're the candidate. You
Yes.
hold the responsibility for that. So I would say people who are in nonprofit management, people who have sat on community boards, nonprofit boards, corporate boards are key and prime candidates to run
Mhm.
for office. And I would say, even as Latinas, we are nurturers, problem solvers, and we're always lending a hand and looking for solutions, for our kids, for our
Mhm.
families, for our communities. And those are skill sets that
Yes.
you will call upon in your political life more times than not, and people don't realize that. People have this vision that a somebody in public office is white, male, like, business owner, what have you. But to some extent, and that's a very narrow focused way of how to solve problems and look at an issue and be narrow focus on how to solve it, where women and through the different walks of life of how they've contributed to society and to their professional life, that they are able to just leap bounds ahead of them and identifying issues and offering the solution to be able to pass legislation, improve policy, and get back to their constituents on where they are on the issue.
Yeah. Yeah, because there's this emphasis on knowing what your strengths are. Like you have these inherent strengths and superpowers, and maybe doubling down on that and getting your mindset right in terms of who you
Mhm.
are, what you really do offer as a candidate, and how you may not be like anyone else and how that's a good thing. And
Yes,
you
yes.
don't want to mirror, the people that are already doing something or doing things when that's not really who you are, and you have something else to offer, and so that's super important.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, listen, if you look at our congressional leadership, you will see some Congress uh, people and senators that to me, it's very mind blowing how they are they are in charge of making laws, which some of them aren't making any laws. They're
Yeah.
just they're doing a lot of
Yeah.
hateful rhetoric noise
Yes.
against Americans. But that is a microcosm of the community and the constituency that they represent. So
Yes.
that's also very telling of the different parts of America, what the thought
Mhm.
process is and what they value or don't value. And
Mhm.
so when I see somebody that I would say I could run circles around them, uh, and I know that I have done better for my community and will continue to do better for my community in that sense. So I think you just have to look at some of the current congressional people and say, "Oh yeah, I could do this." I
Um,
mean, the
yeah.
bar is low.
And let me tell you, I'll say it because if you listen to this podcast, you know I'm not conservative. Is that people talk about imposter syndrome, and I'm like, let me tell you something. You got to let that go because look what's in the White House. Not even mediocre. We're talking about lower than mediocre. Okay, so when I think about that, when people talk about imposter syndrome, one, I just don't think it's a real thing. I think some part of it's systemic, part of it is just what naturally will happen when you're in a very competitive environment to anybody is that you're going to question like, oh, like can I do this? But for running for office, I look at politicians and I'm like, there's a lot of mediocrity and less than mediocrity. Let me tell you, you're probably a superstar upon the superstar upon the superstar
Exactly.
of
Yeah.
candidates.
If they would have a day in your life, they would be scared. Let's
Yeah,
put
yeah,
it this
yeah,
way.
exactly. Yeah.
Yes, and it is, you're right. I mean, we've come to a point where we've appointed cabinet members that do not have that experience, that have had volunteer office in the reserve. And it's not anything against the reserve, but when you're a defense secretary, that comes with a lot more skills and
Yes.
expertise that the current administration is overlooking because they are aligning a certain philosophy that is about power and greed
Mhm.
and exclusivity versus the 330 million Americans that we have here and Latinos being the emerging
Yes.
majority in most states. I know it is in Texas, but yet it's
Yes.
not representative in the state legislature.
Yes. Okay, so Deanna, I want to run for office. I'm talking to my people. I'm thinking to myself, okay, how far in advance do I need to actually commit? And what does committing actually look like? Do I have to file something? I mean, I'm talking about very basic things.
You know,
Do I
no,
file
no.
something? Do I submit something? Do I need what do I need to do?
So my advice is to go, do it 12 months, in advance. So in this case, if I want to run for a state representative office, so in Texas, it's every other biennium. So you serve in the legislature every other odd year, but you get elected during the even years. So say was it 2026 will be elections. So right now, what I would be doing,
Mm.
I would buy the candidate school course, use the summer to go through the course, talk to people. But before that, if you're going to run, then you research like where do I file? What are
Mm.
the key deadlines? So then you put that in your workbook saying, okay, I need to filing, the filing begins in December and then ends in January. I think they give you like a 30-45 day window to
Mhm.
file. But even before then, I will have had my key volunteers or staff already identified, such as the field director, a campaign manager at the least, and then you'll have like a communications manager or director. So you need those three individuals to keep it going because and then knowing, and that's why I say you need 12 months because you're going to need, 3-4 months to put the team together, have the conversations, do the math to figure out, okay, for this seat, I need to raise $250,000
Mhm.
versus even the same seat in another part of Texas, maybe less or maybe more.
Mhm. Mhm.
So knowing that number, get your team together and say, what do we have to raise and how many people do we need to get, to get us at 51%. So having that base and then knowing when to file. And then as soon as you file, then you put out the communication. And then from there, every day you're campaigning. But
But it's like a full-time job. This seems like
it
a
is.
full-time. Okay.
It's a full-time job, but what I would advise, because I didn't know any better, so I was doing it
Mhm.
every day, and I was
Yeah.
literally burning myself out.
Yep.
But at the same time, I said, okay, on Fridays, I'm not going to do anything, because I wanted to be with my family. I
Yes.
wanted to rest. And so we would just make sure that the critical, activities were taken care of, so that on Friday it would be a light load. If anything, I would have something come up. But obviously on weekends, that's the most busiest that you have. So looking at those days in during the week that you can have some downtime and not feel guilty, because the one thing again, you don't want to say, I should be doing this. No,
Mm.
you have the afternoon off to be for yourself.
Mhm.
It'll be there tomorrow and you'll continue, to make the inroad. And so
Wait,
it's looking
why are the weekends the busiest?
because that's when you have the events, like the chamber may have, like an event, or some of the community, and city, events happen. Like you have some rallies, or you have some carnivals, or you have, um, some networking things, and it'll be a lot in the evenings and weekends that you
Mm.
have. Like we have the rodeo on the weekend, so guess where I'm at? The
Yeah.
rodeo.
Okay.
Like, and they were kind of fun. It was like,
Yes.
okay. So you have festivals that go on. It just also depends on the time of the year.
Yes.
Um, and this is, so you'll know that you'll be busy weekends and evenings, but you don't have to just fill your calendar. Just say, does this get me closer or get me more votes?
Yes.
And because on the fundraising, you can make call to those individuals, but people
Mhm.
need to see you on a repetitive basis. So they say, "Oh yeah, here she is. Yeah, I remember her over here, and she talked about education." And so
Mhm.
they people have to see you and hear you several times. So that's why you know that you'll be busy during those times. But my advice is to start mapping it out 12 months from the time of the election day.
Mhm.
And even on election day, that you go back to the filing window. Because once you file
You're
and
on.
you're on, I mean, you can start fundraising
Wait,
as
hold on. So you're
yeah.
saying so when see, then this is now my own, like, anxiety is rising up in me because wait, so this means that once I file,
Uh-huh.
like, I have to be out there. Like,
You
I'm out.
don't have to be, you don't have to be, but you're making that declaration.
Okay,
You're
okay.
making that
But
declaration, you're out there,
yes,
you're gonna start getting the media contact you, and you want that.
yes,
And, but that's why you wanna have your message, you wanna have your why, and you keep it
yes.
short. Sometimes we stumble, we try to change our message, keep it simple, repetitive, over and over and over again. But once you file, then it becomes official, because the media will always be looking who's filing, and
Mhm.
they wanna be the first one to cover you. And so it becomes official, and in the sense that you want to have your treasurer, because at that point, you don't have to have your website, you don't have to have anything formally done. You can just say, "Hey, Deanna, I filed, I have my treasurer, can I get a $500 donation for my campaign? And this is why."
Mm.
You can
You
start
need the
doing that.
treasurer because they manage the finances.
Yeah. Yeah.
Donate.
And that's part of the ethics as well,
Yes, okay,
that you have to have that. But
okay.
it's outlined in the workbook, that it takes you through the process, and then you can reference it to say, "Oh, this is why I need to, you know, do this action before this other one."
Yes.
Yeah.
But the pace, like, the pace of the campaign, like, when you were mentioning
Mhm.
having, a lot of stuff is happening on the weekend, but you're also busy during the week. When does that really pick up, and when are you really going full force? Because I'm thinking of people who work full time, who are like,
Mhm.
"How am I gonna go full force in a campaign and work?" And I'm assuming they don't
They
continue.
don't. Correct. Correct. And that's a reality. And that's my first chapter, that's called Candidate Life.
Yeah,
Because you want to mm, envision, and I lay out the steps of what candidate life
yeah,
will look like.
yeah,
Your personal worth, can you go ahead and afford, and can they give you a leave of absence? Or
yeah.
do you have
Yes,
to,
yes, yes.
resign?
Yeah.
Can and or how long can you go before you literally have to resign? Because
Mm.
then by then you'll be, on and 24/7 pretty much.
Mhm.
Uh uh so you'll have to think about that. I had to personally think about my finances because I was a single parent. with 2
Mhm.
kids, and, when I got fired from the agency that I worked in, like, that really threw a wrench,
Mhm.
but I had to quickly figure out how do I continue to sustain myself financially while I ran for office, so I had to figure that out on my own,
Mhm.
and then also, like, building your team, like, having the conversations, knowing, the analytics, so all of that is discussed in the first chapter that's titled Candidate Life or something like that.
Mhm.
So you want to do that, but like I said, once you file, you have made the official declaration.
Yeah.
And but it won't pick up. I mean, it'll be literally you'll kind of like be deflated because you're like, oh, I filed and nothing's happening. That's okay. That's okay.
It's
Because
happening. Nothing's happening.
yeah, you need that time to like, oh, just kind of settle with
Yeah.
that.
That's
What
it.
what have I done moment.
You just did
And
it. It's on
yes,
now. You just
yeah.
did it.
And so then that's a great time for you and your team then to build the plan. Continue then to start saying, you know you know, what are the events? And they'll do them like you can have them do them on a monthly basis, on a quarterly basis if they know which groups to go talk to. I mean, I talk to a lot of education groups,
Mhm.
healthcare, the doctors also supported me. So it was interesting the PACs and the associations that were interested in hearing more and then you would follow up and say, will you endorse me or will you support me? And if they wouldn't endorse, you would even ask them, well, if you can't endorse me, can you stay out of the race? And that in a way is like a second win because
Mm,
they're not endorsing your opponent and
I
they're
see.
staying clear. Yeah. So these different tactics, it's kind of like when they say no, to me, it's not a full no. I'll find a way like, okay, if you don't want to endorse me, what are your plans for for my opponent? Can I ask for you to stay out of the race and you can go focus on some other
Mhm.
races?
Mhm.
So it's worth the ask, and sometimes they would, and sometimes they wouldn't. But to me, it's like finding different tactics and strategies to help you have the upper hand as you are out in the community. But I would say, Ari V, that probably uh, the probably after I would say like August up until November, that's like pretty
Full
much
force.
24/7.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
But, like, during the summer, it's nice. You're, like, feeling good, and but, yeah, once
Yeah.
August hits, like, yeah, and
You're in it.
it's okay because it's a very short, tight, compact, set of weeks,
Yes.
and but then if you're getting a lot of attention, a lot of people reaching out to you, that means you're in a good space, you're in a good momentum.
Mhm. But your
Yeah.
campaign manager is the one who
Oh,
essentially books all of your stuff, like books your
yes.
events, like they're the ones who you rely on
Yeah.
to know where to go, where should I be, where should I be, where should I be showing up? So,
Yes, and yeah,
know
and
why.
that's what I say, do not do it alone because I was talking to a candidate who also bought the course, so I just didn't realize that she was here locally. Because the
Mm.
one time I was walking, I'm like, I saw a campaign sign, I go, "I know that name." And I went back, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, she just lives, like, next door in the next town." So I reached out to her and she was telling me how she was doing X amount of activities, and I said, "You know what? Stop. Your job is to go talk to voters and future constituents." And I said, "Do you have a campaign manager?" She goes, "Yes." "Then give them that task because
Yeah.
you're wasting energy." But that's why having a campaign coach or this process, she needed to remember, "Oh, yeah, you're right. You did say that."
Mhm.
And so, because if you're doing the work of a field director, if you're doing your campaign manager's job, then that's taking time away from you, dialing for dollars or going to an event or, having your
Yes.
little push carts as you're out and about, just doing your daily errands and stuff like that. You want to stay as visible as much as possible during the time and not be behind the scenes doing the work. I mean,
Mhm.
yes, you do work with your team to do it because you have to provide the input. And as you're out there, you're also getting intel.
Mm.
So then you also have to, transfer or give that intel to your team so that
Yes.
they'll do your schedule. Oh, yeah, we were going to send you to this festival, but now that we know that you don't have a lot of supporters, we're going to switch you to go to this type
Mhm.
of thing. Or, hey, for some reason, the event fell through. We didn't have enough time to do another one. So guess what? You have an afternoon off.
Mhm.
And it's okay. It's okay. It's like, um, but to me, I would say make sure that you move the needle every day,
Yeah.
whether one, taking care of yourself.
Yes. Which, I'm
I would
passionate about.
say absolutely number one, take care of yourself.
Yes.
Find what self care is for you,
Yes.
whether it's with your
Yeah.
family, going
Yeah.
out to dinner, cooking at dinner,
Yeah.
sitting out,
Yes. Yes.
that is just so, so important that nobody told me.
Yeah.
And I felt guilty doing it. And, but do that and just have the best team and build that
Yeah.
trust with your team
Yeah.
because it's gonna get very gritty and, with the media and being in a campaign, your opponents will throw so many untrue things about you.
Yeah, how do you deal with that? How do you manage that?
It's like, well, first, then it's a natural reaction to say, "How dare they?" Or it does,
Yes.
like, rile
Yes.
you up. And in the beginning, I was that way, and I was like, "What? I can't believe that," because as a and I'll speak it from a Latina lens, you know how we work twice as hard, 3 times as
Yeah.
hard, to the near perfection type of thing. Because our parents and grandparents told us, like, "Don't create any waves, to do your best.
Yes. Yes.
Don't put attention to yourself," which is all the opposite of running for office.
Yes. And the opposite of how to succeed professionally. Like you need
Yeah,
to be
right.
visible, you need to challenge, you need to have a voice, you need to voice that. Like it's
Yes,
very, yes, you have to unlearn a lot of things.
I learned exactly. So when those, the name calling and those untruth, you know, remarks come your way, to me, I see it as like, wow, they're really reaching because they don't have enough substantive information for them
Mhm.
that they have to go resort to those tactics. And as people say this and that, or they hear it, you can just, I mean, you don't have to acknowledge it because say, hey, my opponent, thinks that I'm, wasteful on education spending. But let me tell you the facts on
Mhm.
what it is about, running the science program or something like that. When you pivot, then you dismiss that remark and then you leave them with some very, informational and factual, stuff that they can relate
Mhm.
to.
Wait, what about you? What about when your campaign is like, let's run negative ads on our opponents?
And it works both ways. It works
Yeah.
both ways.
Yeah.
So to
Yeah.
me,
You
it's
do both.
like,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, in my, yeah, it was a re-election for state rep. Yeah, my
Mhm.
opponent came out swinging hard with negative ads. And so at some point, you also have to realize, okay, you want to go there? We can go there and then do one up on you.
Yeah.
But that's where I would leave it to our
Yes.
marketing and people because they come up with the phrases and you know doing yeah, they do magic.
Mm.
And so and I thought, okay, well, I have to get used to saying this as well.
Mhm.
But we never, I would say I did 4 campaigns. I won 3. I did 4 campaigns. It was the last campaign that went really negative really quickly.
Mhm.
So it was a totally different ball game
Mhm.
that if I wanted to win, I had to run in that lane
Mhm.
while also keeping my integrity.
Yeah.
and the things that I would not compromise. Because that's the other thing that I write in the candidate school is like, what are your non-negotiables?
Yes.
You still have to play the game per se in politics of what it is. Um, because it is at the end of the day, it's competition, it's a race, and
Mm.
you want to win.
Yes.
Now that winning part probably took 20%. So I was okay because if my campaign was all, attacking him and negative ads, then there's a disbalance there. But if my campaign had, 10, 20% of that negative, you know, swinging back and forth, that's just, the par for course as well in a campaign.
So then what happens then after, say you win? How about say you win? Who is your team?
So, we get like a few hours to decompress. Hours is not
I'm
even
just saying
days.
you win, but then now it's like, now I gotta get to work, but who's my team? Like, who supports me? And
Yeah,
how do I
you
make
have
a living doing this? And I left my
mhm,
job and like,
mhm,
what does life look like? And I asked the question because I think a lot of people, they're willing to deal with maybe uncertainty of a campaign, but then when they're in
mhm,
office, they're like, who's gonna support me? How do I do this? I've never done
right.
it before.
Mhm. No, so what happens when you win and when I won, okay, now we get to work, and my campaign team was not my staff in
Right.
the legislature. I think I only brought over 1. Yeah, I think I only brought over 1 individual,
Hmm.
and then but because so it the thing is, you hit on a word, there's uncertainty. There's a lot of uncertainty because in politics, it's very, very fast moving, um, and so the uncertainty and through the uncertainty, you also build trust, because during that campaign cycle, you will know who showed up, you will know who had your back, and you will know who has that skill set then to transfer over into your legislative team. And in that, when I debriefed with my campaign team, we said, okay, what do we do? What's the next step? And I asked my campaign manager because she had worked in different campaigns, on the national level all the way to the
Hmm.
state level. So I leaned on her expertise to help guide me, like what happens next. So I formed the team, but then again, like I said, oh, I didn't realize I get paid $600 a month, and that's net. Like it's like, oh gosh, the fun just went away. uh, and again, because you are in the legislature, you're busy, and it's also a buildup when you're in the legislature. The first few weeks, it's very quiet. It's just very it's a very peaceful, I would say, calming, momentum. But then all of a sudden, when the deadline for bill comes, then it picks up, and it's towards the second half of when you're in the legislature. But to me, it's like I need to have some sort of, you know, other a consulting, and in this case, it would be a consulting work to complement while I'm in office,
Hmm.
because while I'm that's my official job, it's not financially sustainable. Now in the place that I'm in, because I'm, again, single parent, but, some people have spouses that can
Yes.
help and support their spouse,
Yes.
while they're in office, and that's fine. But then you also have some Latinos who want to run, and they're single, and then they have their only income. And so you either tap into your savings or investments, or the best thing is to find an ally that is supportive of your position in office, that you can do consulting work. And in
Hmm.
my case, I did education consulting
Yes.
with a firm that was looking to have, the expertise of somebody that knows Texas education.
Hmm.
And it was very flexible. They understood the dynamics. It wasn't easy, but it was doable. It was
Yes.
doable. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. So, and then again, I didn't know any of these things. And nobody told me ahead of time, you're going to have to get a job. Like nobody told me that. You have to get a job while you're serving in the legislature. It just so many things were happening that what was obvious didn't occur to me early on.
Mm-hmm.
And
This is why I
but
love the work you're doing because you are introducing people to what it's like and what to expect so that they don't feel like, well, I didn't know that. Well, like
yeah,
all the things that you didn't know, you're teaching people, this is what I wish I would have known. And this is what I really need you to know before you step in here. And I'm giving you all the information and you're gonna do some self-reflection and you're going to figure this out and recognizing that there are gonna be unpredictable events that are going to happen.
exactly. And because without a doubt, unpredictable events will happen. But having gone through this workbook and identify, okay, I'm going to figure out the finances, or I'm going to figure out my
Mhm,
personal life, or,
mhm,
my spouse has agreed to support me and take care of the kids, or
mhm.
I have asked my employer, to give me a leave of absence for a year, going through that versus figuring them out all at once was very stressful,
Yes.
very overwhelming, while at the same time that I did not have a mentor or
Mhm.
somebody, relatable that I could, feel confident to say, I'm scared. I don't know how to do this. But I internalize a lot of that. And to me, it's like, and despite all that, I'm very honored and privileged that I won. But I don't want women to have to go through that process. They
Yeah.
can have a good journey, a solid journey, and
Mhm.
win.
Yeah, and when.
And
Yes.
win. Yes.
And I love that you're mentoring, you're coaching, other women. I love that. And I love that even you sharing what you're sharing today is like you're mentoring whoever's listening and saying, "Hey, this is go take the candidate school course and reach out to me if you need more support." And I think that's really important for women to feel like there is someone who gets it, who's been there, who wants to be helpful, and something that's super tangible, like a course that you can do the way that
Mhm.
you've described it is super concrete, tangible, practical, doable. Like I can grasp it. My brain's not shutting off because it's overwhelmed. I'm like, okay, it's a step by step thing. I don't have to figure out everything all at once, but I do have to figure this out one step at a time.
Yes, exactly. And to me, like, women will take it and say, you know what, this is great, but it's not for me. So it's better for them to know
That's
ahead of
good though. Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe they can be a policy director, maybe they can be a campaign manager instead of running for office. Either
Hmm.
way, it prepares them well, or to say, yes, now I have
Yes.
as much information, the framework now to go confidently and courageously and just bring as many followers and supporters, to their cause and to help them win, their campaign and help them get elected to office.
Yes. Yes. I've been talking to a few people who are thinking about running for office for next year. And I say, oh, how can I support you? I will never run for office, but I will support you in
Yes.
any way I can. I'll be in the background. No one has to see me, but like I'll help in any way I can. But
Yeah.
for people who are maybe more on maybe towing the line between like I want to be helpful, supportive, or maybe I want to run, I think the candidate school is really helpful because it will give you the clarity. So that
It
you know
does.
you've done the work to decide. You
Yeah.
make an informed decision at that point. And I think that's really
Exactly. Exactly. Because it's like when you interview for a position or role, an executive role that you want, I mean, you just don't throw your resume or application and don't study, don't research it.
yeah.
It's kind of like a same concept per
Mhm.
se that you do a lot of the preparation. One, because it's very fast paced, and there's also depending on the cycle, on the election cycles, it can be short, it could be long, and
Yes.
knowing what how to prepare for those cycles as well. So that's why right now I encourage women to get the course and use, this latter part of the spring and the summer to do the discernment, to go through the workbook,
Mhm.
have that information, have that clarity, and then identify a race because the midterms are around the corner.
Coming,
They
coming.
are a lot sooner than what we think. And
Yes.
then you have the
Yes.
presidential election in 2028. So this course serves
Oh,
for
it's just too
2026
far
and 2028.
away. It's too far away.
And
Can it be next year, please? Even this year.
I know, right? Well, I think that
Exactly.
our 1 month seems like a year as the way things are happening. We're just bombarded and are living through so
Yes.
much and being overwhelmed that's why
Yes.
it's important to pause and
Yes.
take time and discern really well on where you want to put your energies because we want to have as many people to come out on the end and have
Mhm.
those champions to be our leaders of
Yes.
tomorrow. But you have to start today.
Have to start today. Well, Deanna,
Yeah.
thank you so much for walking us through all of that. Let's remind people where they can sign up for the candidate school and how they can find you.
Yes, yes. So if you go to my website, it's dianamaldonado.com, and then you'll see the candidate school and you can purchase it there. But what I like to offer your members and your podcast viewership is that I would like to offer a $150 discount, and I'll
Amazing.
share the code because
Okay,
I
great.
am very committed to Latinas and I'm very committed to women to taking this investment in themselves to explore and discern right now because I bet that more times than not there's going to be so many women that can do it. And
Mhm.
don't let the money part with regards to raising the money, just be smart about raising money and be smart about where you put your money in the campaign because we get all these miracles and upsets where people have been outraised by their opponents by millions, but yet that candidate who was consistent, showed up, and was diligent ended up winning her race. And I will say
Mhm.
her race.
Sure. That's right.
Yeah. So if you put women WOMEN then 150
Mhm.
and you put that discount code and then you'll get the discount out of the fee of 795 from the course.
Amazing. Amazing. Thank you so much, Deanna. Thank you for sharing your knowledge again and all of your experience and your passion for this work. I will definitely send that to just my network for people that
Oh,
I
please do. Yeah.
have been thinking about it. And I encourage everyone listening that even if you are not interested in running or even exploring that, to please share with your network. Like forward the link, forward the code,
Yes.
share with your network.
Yeah, because I mean it'll take some time. I mean, but right now we're in a time where you can't vacillate. You can't
Right.
sit on the sidelines. It's time
Yep.
to get in traffic
Yes.
and let it be you.
Yes. Let it be you. The time is now. I love it. All right, Dana, thank you so much.
Thank you, Ivy. Appreciate it. Thank you so much. I appreciate the work that you're doing.
Thank you.